Harness your independent voice. Together, we make it heard. Are you willing to accept the challenge? Welcome to Independent Voice. We believe in the power of independent thinking, where truth triumphs over negativity, and where your voice can spark change. Join us as we explore the vibrant tapestry of independent voices and open minds, united by a shared goal: to inspire ourselves and others to think, speak, and act with independence and courage. At IV, we are dedicated to amplifying voices that often go unheard. Whether you're here to be informed, contribute, or find inspiration, your voice is vital in shaping the conversation. Together, we can illuminate pathways to a paradigm shift towards independent thinking and strong perspectives. Independent Voice, where authenticity meets integrity, harnessing thoughts and igniting change. Subscribe now and unleash the power of your independent voice. Our goal is to make a difference that lasts. Let's put forth our will behind truth and integrity. Ready to be heard?
Ethiopia's economic crossroads, the double-edged sword of US policy. Welcome to Independent Voice, where integrity leads, voices rise, and transparency drives the conversation. Once again, we take you to the Horn of Africa, to Ethiopia, a nation with a rich history and a resilient people, now navigating one of its toughest economic and political chapters. Ethiopia stands at a crossroads, facing the consequences of international policies that, though framed in diplomacy and security, strike at the heart of its development aspirations. Two major actions by the United States, the 10% tariff and Ethiopia's suspension from African Growth and Opportunity Act, form a double-edged sword, cutting deep into the hopes of millions. The 10% tariff, a costly barrier. In recent months, a 10% tariff imposed by the US on Ethiopian goods, initiated under the renewed Trump administration, has added an unexpected burden to an already fragile economy. Originally introduced as part of an America First trade policy, the tariff aimed to bolster US industries. But for Ethiopia, it has meant higher export costs, fewer buyers, and dwindling competitiveness, especially in sectors like textiles, leather, coffee, and agriculture. These sectors are lifelines. They employ hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians, many of them women and young workers in industrial parks, and contribute directly to poverty reduction. Instead of protecting American interests alone, the policy has helped destabilize one of Africa's most promising economies. African Growth Opportunity Act, suspension. Opportunity denied. As if the tariff weren't enough, Ethiopia continued to be suspended from the African Growth and Opportunity Act, a U.S. trade program offering duty-free access to American markets for eligible African nations. The suspension was announced in early 2022 during the Biden administration, in response to the civil war in Ethiopia's northern regions. Despite progress toward peace, the policy has yet to be reversed. While African Growth Opportunity Act eligibility is tied to human rights and good governance, critics argue that the decision lacked nuance, punishing not the policymakers, but the people, the same people the policy claims to protect. Since then, Ethiopia has made measurable progress. A peace agreement was signed in Pretoria, humanitarian access has improved, and political dialogue is underway. Yet African Growth Opportunity Act remains closed, even months into the new administration, with no clear timeline for reinstatement. The loss is devastating, with the potential to cause an estimated $500 million in lost exports, factory closures, and job losses for tens of thousands. According to a report by Business and Human Rights Resources Center, Ethiopia's removal from the African Growth and Opportunity Act in January 2022 has had profound economic consequences. The National Bank of Ethiopia reports that over 11,500 jobs have been lost, with 18 foreign companies exiting the country, leading to a combined revenue loss of $45 million in industrial parks. The Hawassa Industrial Park, once a flagship of Ethiopia's industrialization efforts, has been particularly hard hit. At its peak, it employed over 35,000 workers, but the African Growth and Opportunity Act suspension led to significant job losses and factory closures. The double-edged sword. The combination of a 10% tariff and African Growth Opportunity Act exclusion represents a double-edged sword, cutting into Ethiopia's capacity to grow and into its citizens' ability to hope. Many Ethiopians are now forced to migrate, not for lack of love for their country, but because economic survival demands it. The irony? The same countries tightening migration controls are also restricting trade avenues that would have kept these citizens home. The economic downturn has exacerbated migration pressures. With limited job opportunities, many Ethiopians are compelled to seek livelihoods abroad, often undertaking perilous journeys. This migration trend poses challenges not only for Ethiopia, but also for destination countries concerned about border security and immigration control. Here's the truth. Helping Ethiopia thrive helps reduce forced migration. Economic opportunity is a powerful stabilizer, stronger than any border wall or immigration ban. Accountability and policy gaps. Much of the decision-making around Ethiopia in 2021 and 2022 was influenced by incomplete vetting, misinformation, and powerful lobbying. The Biden administration's response to the conflict was swift, but it was also one-sided, influenced by narratives that were not always factual. Several reports indicate that the decision to suspend Ethiopia from African Growth Opportunity Act was primarily based on human rights concerns. However, the unintended consequences have disproportionately affected ordinary citizens. A study from the University of Pretoria argues that such unilateral sanctions may do more harm than good, suggesting a need for more nuanced policy approaches. The Ethiopian diaspora, once a unified voice advocating for the nation's interests, has become fragmented. Misinformation and political propaganda have sown divisions, with some groups influenced by partisan agendas, undermining cohesive advocacy efforts. Many Ethiopian voices, particularly from civil society and the diaspora, were shut out of the conversation. These diaspora voices were not always aligned and continue to appear deeply polarized, influenced by political sympathizers and individuals who, while identifying as community organizers, often operate with personal or partisan agendas. We call on this administration to give a listening ear to well-meaning voices, those who genuinely advocate for the well-being of the Ethiopian people and uphold the integrity and sovereignty of the nation. Several key institutions within the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia would play critical roles in matters related to tariffs and the African Growth and Opportunity Act. These include the Ministry of Trade and Regional Integration, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Ethiopian Investment Commission, EIC, all responsible for coordinating high-level diplomatic engagement and providing data on investment impact and industrial development. The National Dialogue Commission, established to foster reconciliation and internal peace, could offer valuable input, particularly regarding governance reforms. A key criterion for African Growth Opportunity Act eligibility, recognizing the political polarization within the diaspora, the Ethiopian Diaspora Engagement Office is vital in ensuring objective representation of diaspora perspectives. This office can help present a balanced narrative, especially in countering the effects of past misinformation and politically driven lobbying campaigns. In the United States, the Ethiopian Embassy in Washington, D.C. serves as a central diplomatic bridge, facilitating engagement between Ethiopia's policy leadership and U.S. decision-makers. The embassy is critical in advancing Ethiopia's case for both the reinstatement of the African Growth Opportunity Act and the reconsideration of the 10% tariff, helping to coordinate bilateral dialogue and reinforcing Ethiopia's reform efforts and economic recovery agenda. Such a coordinated, multi-institutional approach would be possible only if the current U.S. administration re-engages Ethiopia in constructive dialogue regarding these pressing trade and policy matters. The human impact, women and youth. Beyond policy circles and economic reports, the true cost of African Growth Opportunity Act suspension and the 10% tariff is borne by Ethiopia's most vulnerable, its women and its youth. Across industrial parks, it was primarily young women, many of them first-time wage earners, who powered Ethiopia's textile boom. These jobs offered not just income, but independence, dignity, and hope. That hope is now dimmed. Thousands have been laid off. Dreams of financial freedom have been replaced with uncertainty and fear. For many, the sacrifices made to earn college degrees now feel like empty promises in a jobless economy. According to the National Bank of Ethiopia, more than 11,500 jobs were lost in industrial parks alone. That number doesn't include informal sectors or ripple effects in food, housing, and transport. When opportunity dies, despair takes its place, and with it, a generation begins to lose faith in the future. The shattered hopes of Ethiopia's young graduates. Across Ethiopia, a silent crisis is unfolding, not just in factories or trade offices, but in classrooms and among recent college graduates. These young minds, who once saw themselves as the architects of Ethiopia's bright future, now face a sobering reality. With African Growth Opportunity Act suspended and investors departing, the job market they were preparing for has collapsed. For many, years of sacrifice, academic achievement, family investment, national pride now feel like a broken promise. Ethiopia's youth unemployment rate was already estimated to be over 25% before the African Growth and Opportunity Act suspension. According to the Ethiopian Jobs Creation Commission, more than 2 million youth enter the job market each year, but only a fraction find sustainable employment. Without access to jobs in export manufacturing or foreign-backed innovation hubs, many young people are left discouraged. Some are turning to migration, others to silence. Hope is fading, and in its place, hopelessness is growing. The mental health toll on Ethiopia's most vulnerable. The pain goes deeper than economics. It's emotional, it's psychological. Ethiopia's most vulnerable, the elderly, low-income women, single mothers, and rural communities, are bearing the brunt of policy decisions made oceans away. According to a joint report by UNICEF and the Ethiopian Ministry of Health, mental health services are critically underfunded, with less than 1% of health spending allocated to psychological care. The report warns of rising anxiety and depression, especially in displaced and unemployed populations. Inflation, job losses, and uncertainty compound these silent wounds. When the doors of opportunity close, and when food and medicine become unaffordable, the psychological toll is immense. Elders watch helplessly as their children and grandchildren suffer. Mothers lie awake wondering how they'll feed their families. The youth, once full of promise, now see their future slipping away, not from lack of talent, but lack of opportunity. And so the question remains, will the world listen? Or will the invisible scars of economic exclusion be allowed to deepen? This is a call to the current Trump administration, still early in its new term, to take a fresh look at Ethiopia based on facts, not filters. Conduct new assessments, meet with Ethiopian stakeholders, understand the evolving ground realities. While it is still early in the new administration, swift action on Ethiopia's trade status could send a powerful signal that diplomacy and development can coexist with national interests. Our advocacy and a call to action. At Independent Voice, we're not just reporting. We believe in doing more than raising awareness. We take meaningful action. We have formally submitted a letter to the White House, urging the administration to reevaluate the 10% tariff on Ethiopian goods, reinstate Ethiopia's eligibility under the African Growth and Opportunity Act, and establish a clear, open channel for sustained economic partnership and diplomatic dialogue. This is more than a matter of trade policy. It's about people, progress, and the future of a nation seeking partnership, peace, and opportunity for national growth and sustainability. At Independent Voice, we're not just reporting, we're acting. We have submitted a formal letter to the White House, urging the administration to reconsider the 10% tariff and reinstate Ethiopia's African Growth Opportunity Act status. This is more than policy. It's about people, progress, and partnerships that matter. You too can join this movement. Share this video. Reach out to your representatives. Speak up. Because the growth opportunity of Ethiopia and Africa is not just a regional concern, it's a global responsibility. Hope despite hardship. Ethiopians are not victims waiting for handouts. They are visionaries, builders, and dreamers. They deserve a fair shot, not policies that punish them twice for circumstances beyond their control. Let's not forget that trade is more than economics. It's a bridge between nations, a tool for peace, and a platform for shared growth opportunities, the pursuit of happiness and freedom. This is Independent Voice, bringing you the stories that matter, the truths that challenge, and the voices that rise. Subscribe, like, and share. And let's continue to speak for those who can't and challenge those who won't. Remember, use your voice to make a difference and not to silence others.